It wasn't the sight that made her slow down. It was the sound. A soft, uneven scrape against asphalt. Not metal. Not tire. Something lighter. Something misplaced. The late afternoon highway was moving in its usual rhythm. Commuters heading home. Delivery trucks drifting between lanes. A sky the color of dull silver, holding back rain that hadn't decided whether to fall. She was in the far right lane when she heard it again. A brushing, almost like fabric being dragged. Her foot eased off the gas without thinking. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Just the long stretch of road curving ahead. A faded shoulder line. A discarded fast food bag fluttering in a light wind. Then she noticed a patch of white where there shouldn't have been one. Not a plastic bag. Not paper. Feathers. A swan stood in the narrow shoulder space between the concrete barrier and the edge of traffic. Large. Out of place. Its wings half open but uneven, as if one side didn't understand what the other was doing. Cars passed too close. The rush of wind tugged at its feathers. It didn't try to fly. It didn't even move away. It simply stood there, neck curved low, blinking slowly at nothing in particular. She drove past it by accident. And then she kept driving for another 50 yards before the quiet discomfort settled in. No horns. No alarms. Just the steady awareness that something didn't belong where it was standing. She checked her mirrors. Traffic allowed a gap. And she pulled over. The shoulder was narrow. Gravel and small debris scattered near the barrier wall. When she stepped out, the noise of traffic became physical. It pressed against her body in waves. Wind pushed at her jacket. Engines roared and faded in cycles. The Swan remained where it had been. Its body was angled slightly toward the barrier, as if it had tried to move through it and given up. One wing drooped lower than the other. Not twisted. Not visibly broken. Just tired. She didn't rush. She didn't speak at first. She simply stood about 20 feet away and let the scene settle. There was something surreal about it. A lake bird on a highway. Grace placed in the wrong setting. The swan turned its head toward her. Its eyes were dark and steady. Not wild. Just aware. She crouched slowly, lowering herself to reduce her height. Cars continued to sweep past, but in this small pocket beside the barrier, the moment felt strangely contained. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said quietly. It wasn't something the bird could understand in language. But tone travels differently than words. The swan shifted one foot, then stopped. Highways don't pause for rescues. She knew she couldn't linger long. She moved a step closer. The swan reacted, but not in panic. It tried to lift both wings. One responded smoothly. The other rose halfway and trembled before lowering again. That was when she understood. It had probably attempted to cross from the nearby wetlands beyond the highway. Perhaps disoriented. Perhaps struck lightly by a passing vehicle. Enough to weaken, not enough to incapacitate. The barrier wall prevented retreat. Traffic prevented forward escape. It was trapped by movement. She removed her scarf slowly, holding it loosely in her hands. Another car roared by. The gust startled the bird more than she did. She paused again. No sudden movements. No grabbing. Just closing the distance one measured step at a time. The swan lowered its neck, but it didn't attempt to run. There was nowhere to go. When she was close enough to see the faint dust gathered along its feathers, she noticed something else. A small scrape near the edge of the wing. No blood. Just ruffled plumage and stiffness in the joint. Exhaustion more than injury. She extended her hand slowly, palm open. The swan hissed once. Soft. More warning than threat. She stopped immediately. Waited. Cars passed. Wind shifted. Then, carefully, she placed the scarf over the swan's head. Not tightly. Just enough to dim the world. The reaction was instant but not violent. The body tensed. Wings fluttered briefly. Then stilled. Darkness often brings calm to birds. It reduces stimulation. She spoke again in the same low tone. Her other hand moved gently along the base of the wings, securing them against its body. It was heavier than she expected. Solid. Warm. She lifted slowly, adjusting her stance against the pull of highway wind. For a moment, the swan's feet brushed against the asphalt. Then it settled against her chest. Not fighting, just breathing. Getting back to the car was the hardest part. Not because of the swan, because of the traffic. She waited for a brief lull, clutching the bird securely but not tightly. When space opened between vehicles, she stepped quickly to her car and opened the back door. A blanket lay across the back seat. She placed the swan carefully on it, keeping the scarf loosely over its head to maintain calm. It shifted once, then remained still. She closed the door and exhaled for the first time since stepping out. Back in the driver's seat, the world resumed its regular speed. Engines, signals, brake lights. But inside the car, it was quiet. She didn't drive home. She headed toward the wildlife rehabilitation center she knew existed near the wetlands 10 minutes away. Rain finally began to fall. Soft at first, then steady. The rehabilitation center was modest. A low building surrounded by tall grasses and shallow water pools. She carried the swan inside. The air smelled faintly of hay and antiseptic. A volunteer met her at the entrance. No surprise in their expression, only practiced focus. "What happened?" the volunteer asked gently. "Highway shoulder," she replied. "It couldn't lift one wing properly." They moved to a quiet examination room. The scarf was removed carefully. The swan blinked under the fluorescent light but remained composed. Hands, experienced, calm, examined the wing with slow precision. "No fracture," the volunteer said after a moment. "Likely bruising, maybe strain. It needs rest." The woman nodded. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath again. They placed the swan into a large padded enclosure with shallow water and soft bedding. The door closed quietly. For the first time since she'd seen it, the swan lowered itself fully onto the ground. Not collapsed, just resting. She didn't leave immediately. She stood outside the enclosure, hands tucked into her jacket pockets. The rain tapped against the center's windows. The swan adjusted its position slowly, tucking its beak under its wing. The injured wing rested at a careful angle but no longer trembled. There was no dramatic transformation, no sudden recovery, just stillness. The volunteer assured her they would monitor swelling and provide supportive care. "It should regain strength," they said. "They're resilient." She nodded again. Then she stepped outside. The rain had softened the evening air. The highway noise was distant now, reduced to a faint hum beyond the wetlands. 3 days later, she came back. Not because anyone asked her to, just because she wanted to see. The same volunteer recognized her. "It's doing well," they said. They led her toward a fenced outdoor pond area. The swan stood at the water's edge. Its posture had changed. Neck lifted higher, wings folded evenly. When it stepped forward, there was no visible hesitation. It entered the shallow pond and floated easily. Water reshaped its feathers. It looked, for the first time, where it belonged. She didn't approach the fence. She didn't call out. She simply watched. After a few minutes, the swan stretched both wings fully, wide, balanced, then folded them again. The following morning, under a pale sky still heavy with leftover rain clouds, the volunteer team transported the swan to a quiet lakeside away from major roads. She was not there for the release. She had work, traffic, meetings, routine. Later that evening, she drove past the same stretch of highway where she had first seen it. The white patch was gone. The shoulder looked like it always had. Gravel, barrier, faded line. Nothing unusual. She continued driving, not searching, not scanning the roadside, just moving with traffic again. Somewhere beyond the trees, beyond the concrete, a swan settled onto water that moved gently under an open sky. No one applauded. No announcement was made. The highway kept humming, and the world, in its quiet way, adjusted back to balance.